182, final game of the regular season for the Associated Nuggets in San Antonio, looking to clinch the 3 seed with a win in the West. Jokic playing, Wemby not. First quarter action. Jokic cutting to the basket, lays it in. A few minutes later, Carter Bryant for the Spurs has the temerity to throw it down on Jokic. Well, that only got him going. You don't do this on number 15 and get away with it. Halfway through the second quarter, Jokic, top of the key, 3. That rhymes. A few possessions later, off of a miss, Jokic with the tip. Denver up 19. Next possession, Jokic inside the paint with a floater finisher. 22-0 run in the second quarter, tied for the longest unanswered run the Spurs have given up in the play-by-play era. Denver up at the break. Jokic sat the second half. Bruce Brown does the rest here. Nuggets go on to win, clinch that 3 seed. All Jokic needed to do is play 15 minutes Sunday to meet the 65-game threshold for postseason awards. He played 18 minutes, got 23 points, 8 boards. This is ridiculous. The Joker averaged nearly 13 rebounds and 11 assists per game this season, both of which led the league. He is the first player in league history to lead in both of those categories in a season. Nuggets locked into the 3 at the same time the Lakers at home against the Jazz. LeBron early first quarter. Steps back, knocks it down. Lakers up 4 early on. Later in the first, the steal. James on the break. Lobs it to Ayton. 32-22 at the end of the first for Los Angeles. Second quarter, James on the inbound. And the basket. 18-6-4. LeBron sat for the second half as well. Marcus Smart to Rui Hachimura. 22-10 for Rui. Third quarter, Bronny's in the game with the steal. Bronny with the lay-in. Lakers are cruising. Drew Timmy. Dalton connects. I'm yelling. 131-107 is the final, as the Lakers are the 4 seed taking on the Rockets 5 seed, Nuggets and T-Wolves 3-6. The Thunder and the Spurs are top 2 seeds, waiting for whoever emerges from the play-in tournament. The Clippers beat the Warriors tonight. They'll redo it again in the 9-10. Suns and the Blazers are the 7-8 matchup in the play-in tournament. And joining us now after calling Nugget Spurs right here on ESPN is somebody who walked in the building 2 years before I walked out of it. Back here now on SportsCenter together. Tim Legler, good to see you, Tim. How are you, brother?
Rich, great to be on with you again. Good talking to you. And I'm really happy as anybody you're going to find that we finally have postseason matchups and the playoffs are right around the corner. A lot of injuries this year in the regular season, but the playoffs are going to be phenomenal.
Well, let's start with a couple of injuries to the Lakers that could affect how long they are in the playoffs. We know that the Lakers are taking on the Rockets in the first round, Tim, and the Lakers handled the Rockets very well the last time they faced them in a week, twice. But that was back in March when Luka was the Western Conference Player of the Month and the Lakers with Austin Reeves were going off. Now neither guy are in. Give me the scenario in which LeBron and the rest of the Lakers can get through the Rockets without those other two.
Man, it's such an uphill climb now without Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. You know, a duo that combined for just under 60 points this year between the two of them. LeBron James really taking on that third role offensively, certainly capable of being a great player on any given night. But to ask anybody at 41 years old to now really put an offense on your shoulders going into a playoff series where teams can really focus in on you game by game and figure out ways to try to exploit a team's weaknesses. Without that additional offensive firepower, this is going to be a very difficult task for the Lakers against the Houston Rockets. And it's a shame because they had finally hit their stride and they actually were starting to get into the conversation of what team could upset the apple cart out there that we haven't talked about. You know, Oklahoma City, San Antonio are contenders. Denver as well is in that mix. The Lakers were the one other team you looked at because of how hot they were, and unfortunately just decimated with those 2 injuries. So it'll be a very interesting series, but an awful lot to ask of LeBron James to be out there as the lone offensive star for this team.
Nonetheless, they're going to ask him to do that. Now, as for the play-in tournament, 8 teams, 2 conferences. Give me the play-in tournament team that is best equipped to play out and make a nice deep run into the playoffs, Tim.
I think one in each conference I would look at. I'd look at Charlotte, and they're going to have to win 2 games, but they've been some story here for a few months, and they're doing it on both ends of the floor. Incredibly fun. They're entertaining. They're high-powered offensively. They're young. That's a team that's going to be very interesting to see how they perform in the play-in. And then out west, I'm looking at the Clippers, the way that they turned their season around after starting 6-21. And you've got a Kawhi Leonard on that team. You've got a ton of playoff experience. Now, they're going to play the Golden State Warriors in that first game with Steph Curry now just coming back to the action. So that's a fascinating play-in game to get Kawhi Leonard and Steph Curry. But if I look at a team that potentially, could make a run out of the play-in by winning 2 games, the Clippers look like a team that potentially could do that. But look, Phoenix and Portland are both good teams too, and so one of those 2 teams is going to get to 7. Whoever wins that Clippers-Golden State game is going to have to go on the road against either Phoenix or Portland. That won't be easy, but I look at that veteran leadership. I look at a guy like Kawhi Leonard, the year he had. That, to me, would be a team I'd look at and say, hey, maybe they're capable of pulling it off.
Yeah, especially for a team that when they traded away Harden and Zubac, everybody thought they were already looking to future years. Now, this could be a year for them to get out of the play-in tournament and make some noise potentially. Tim, great to see you, man.
Always, Rich. Talk to you soon.
Remember that SportsCenter commercial until just now. We're having a lot of fun tonight. Hopefully you are as well. Let's move things now back to the NBA. Western Conference action on Sunday. Blazers and Kings. A win for Portland would clinch the 8th seed in the West for the Blazers. Second quarter, Blazers up 7. Denny Avdia to the rim and the lay-in. Later in the quarter, Scoot Henderson does some scooting and a dunk. Scooting and dunking. Basically what I'm saying. Minute later, Toumani Camara with a slam. Blazers up 16. You're getting the drift here. Henderson, spot shadowing, driving, hooping, harming. Blazers up 13 after the made free throw. Shaedon Sharpe finds Avdia for 3. He had 25. Blazers locked into the 8th seed. They're going to face the Suns in the play-in tournament. Warriors-Clippers, Kawhi out, Steph Curry in, chewing on that mouth guard, and so difficult to guard when he does that. Nice dish from Kristaps Porzingis. Then Steph with the defense creates the break, and here's what you do. When he's open for 3, you pass it to him. Again, I'm no hoops expert, but I'm just saying if Steph Curry's open for 3, you should, okay, you get the point. Meanwhile, Darius Garland to John Collins. Nice play there in transition. Let's see some good ball movement. All right, there's 1 pass, 2 pass, Bogdanovic for 3. Clippers up 8, under 8 to go, up 10, Benedict Mathurin. And the new look Clippers are going to host the Warriors in the play-in tournament, 9-10 game. Steve Kerr, talk afterwards, please.
We have a lot of respect for each other, and we'd much rather be playing in a best-of-7 series. But it is what it is. So play-in, we gotta see what we can do.
And so what can they do is play a deciding game. In the history of the series, we see last time it happened, Game 7 of the first round, the Clippers got the best of the Warriors, but that was 12 years ago, 12 years before the Wednesday night 10 Eastern play-in game that you can see, and the 9-10 from into it. The Bucks were the first team that missed the cut, finishing 11th in the East, and Doc Rivers will not be returning to Milwaukee, sources telling Shams Charania. Bucks didn't make it out of that first round under Rivers. Attention now shifts to the future of Giannis in Milwaukee. And Giannis, quote, "That's a very good question. I don't know. It's not up to me. We'll see on the future with the Bucks. I feel like sometimes people just don't listen. They listen to sources. The main source is me. it is what it is. So again, don't disturb on my phone. Go about my day, improve, and come back better. So if everything goes well, hopefully the Bucks want me here. Why not? But if they don't, okay.
Detroit, the 1 seed. Cleveland, Toronto in that 4-5 slot. New York, Atlanta. Boston, they'd face the winner of the Philadelphia-Orlando game. Charlotte, Miami. Then they would take on the loser of the 7-8 game. And then whoever wins that one between Charlotte, Miami, or Philadelphia, Orlando, they would take on the 1 seed, Detroit Pistons. Time now to bring in CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzalez for our NBA Eastern Conference playoff preview. And John, let's start with the New York Knicks. They're going up against the Hawks, who have really had a resurgence after they trade Trae Young. They're done with that era. Jalen Johnson looks like to be the marquee guy. You got Jonathan Kuminga, CJ McCollum. What stands out to you about this matchup?
Yeah, if I'm the Knicks, I'm not really thrilled about this because, as you mentioned, the Atlanta Hawks have been one of the hottest teams since the All-Star break in the NBA and certainly in the Eastern Conference. And if you were the Knicks, you were kind of hoping it was going to be the Raptors, right? Because they were 5-0 against the Raptors this season. That's a much better matchup for the Knicks. And the reason why I still think the Knicks are the favorite in this series, but the one problem I've had with the Knicks, despite the fact that they played better since the All-Star break, and there have been ebbs and flows in their season. After they go and they win the NBA Cup, they had a little hiccup, but they righted themselves. And since the All-Star break, they're top 10 in both offense and defense. So you're feeling pretty good about that, right? And they just beat the Celtics the other day, even though they didn't have Jaylen Brown. You're thinking, okay, well, we beat the Celtics and we might have them in the second round. The reason why I have a little bit of hesitation, Chris, about the Knicks is because this season they kind of struggled, not even kind of struggled, they have struggled against teams that are 500 or better, just 21-22 against those teams. Now, they are 2-1 against Atlanta this season, but when I look at Atlanta, I'm thinking, man, this is a nice young team. After they did the addition by subtraction thing with Trae Young and got him off, all of a sudden, boom, they took off like a rocket ship. And Jalen Johnson has been a revelation this season. They got CJ McCollum in for a dime, for a song in that trade for Trae Young. And Yeke Okongwu, a lot of casuals don't really know about him. And the guy that I think that a lot of people are going to be introduced to in the postseason is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's up for, and my pick for, the most improved player. So this is not a gimme for the Knicks. I think they're the favorites, but it's going to be a tough series.
So when you think about what the Knicks did last year, right, or after last postseason, they fired Tom Thibodeau, right, after he took them to a place they haven't been in over decades, right, multiple decades. How much pressure is on them in this series? Because we know how big the expectations are for this team.
Yeah, there is pressure. I mean, if they don't get out of the first round after going to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years, that's a disaster for them. I mean, they had designs not just on getting back to the conference finals this season, but in going to the finals, right? That's what they want. They want to win a championship for the first time in forever. So if they don't beat the Knicks, yes, it would be like all of a sudden, everything's on the table this offseason. Well, now you're thinking about, like, do we move on from Cat? Do we think about dangling OG or Mikal Bridges or whomever? But you're right that once they move on from Tom Thibodeau, they pull that one lever that's still available to them. And so I'm not sure really what success looks like for them. I do think that they'll get out of the first round. It'll be a tough series against Atlanta. But now, if you do, you're almost certainly going to play Boston in the second round. If you don't beat Boston, then what? Like, that kind of feels like a lost season as well, right? Okay, now let's say you even beat Boston, and now you go to the conference finals. Well, don't you have to win that? I mean, like, what does success look like for a Knicks team that has really raised the bar, and rightly so, right? The fan base was feeling themselves last year. They've decided that, like, that's the level that they want to play at. I think that if they don't get to at least the conference finals, that's not a really successful season for them. So they have their work cut out for them.
I would say a successful season is only if they get to the NBA Finals, right? That's for me, that's what success looks like, right? Yeah, I mean, listen, you went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Now you got to get to the NBA Finals and see what you can do against the best in the West. How about for that 4-5 matchup? You got Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and the Cavs going up against Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett in Toronto. How do you see that matchup going, man?
Yeah, if I'm the Cavs on paper, I'm thinking I like this, right? Except for their 0-3 versus the Raptors during the regular season. So the Raptors are kind of plucky, and they fly under the radar because not a lot of people tend to pay attention to the Raptors, right? They end up in that 5 seed. This is one of those teams that this could just be that they're scrappy, and then, like, you don't want to really play them in the first round because they've got that starting 5 now finally healthy with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. And that's one of those teams where, like, maybe they just want to play the spoiler. For the Cavaliers, similar to the New York Knicks, they have to get out of the first round, right? Because last year, they spent most of the season atop the Eastern Conference standings. What happens? They get bounced out in the second round. That was a huge, huge disappointment for them. This season, they come in with huge expectations of, we got to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They start out slow, they dig themselves a little bit of a hole, and they decide before the trade deadline, look, we got to supercharge this thing somehow. So we're going to trade injured at present, but only 26-year-old Darius Garland for 36-year-old James Harden in the hopes of, really boosting this thing and making it to the Eastern Conference Finals or even beyond. On paper, I like the Cavaliers to win this series, but they got to do more than that. If they don't get out of the first round or win the second round, I would say in a similar situation where we're talking about the Knicks and the high expectations for them, Cavaliers, same situation. If they don't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals at least, that would be a disappointing result for them.
Yeah, 100%. Now, for your Sixers, disappointing is an understatement for how their seasons have gone, right? And just keeping it 100, man. When you think about the fact that they're going up against Orlando in the play-in tournament with the right to take on the Boston Celtics, how do you foresee their chances, especially with likely no Joel Embiid?
This feels like, I don't know if you've ever seen Rocky 3, but they asked Clubber Lang, what do you foresee? And he says, pain. Yeah. That's pretty much the default position for the Sixers. Whether or not they win this 7-8 matchup against Orlando or they lose it, and then they take on the winner of the 9-10 matchup between the Heat and the Hornets, and they win that or they lose that, it doesn't really matter, because even if they get out of the play-in, and I think that that's a tall order, they're 2-1 against Orlando this season. We just saw Orlando lose today in a game where you thought that they had everything going for them, right? Because Franz Wagner was out there and Paolo Banchero, and they've got their lineup, and they're playing against the Boston team that didn't even have most of their starters out there. They basically decided we're just going to rest everybody, and rightly so, because they were already locked into the 2 seed. Orlando goes and loses, so I'm not terribly afraid of the Orlando Magic, but just default position for the Sixers. History for the Sixers would tell us, Chris, that things are not going to work out for them because they never do, right? I mean, they're not going to have Joel Embiid in for sure for the play-in or for the first round, which means they're not going to have him for the postseason because they're not getting any farther than that because he just had an appendectomy. And we've seen what happens with Joel Embiid's injury history. Yes, Tyrese Maxey has had a very good season. Paul George is playing better since coming back, and VJ Edgecombe has been a revelation for them. But the ultimate thing here, if you're asking me what happens with the Sixers, they're going to lose sooner than later, and they're going to ride off into the offseason.
Right. So you rather they lose earlier than have to suffer through a 7-game series, or?
Yeah, I mean, the thing here is that they have a first-round pick that they owe to Oklahoma City, but it's protected 1-4. Now, even if you crash out in the play-in, those odds are pretty long, right? But what's the alternative? I would rather have the dice roll on the lottery pick on keeping it and drafting in the top 4 2 years in a row. You just got VJ Edgecombe, you got really lucky. Maybe the lottery gods smile on them again, because unless you do that, you're getting out of the play-in, which means, let's say they beat the Magic. Okay, that's a 4-game sweep against the Celtics. That would be, the Celtics and the Sixers have a long history of very silly meetings in the postseason that almost always work out for Boston. Or they lose that game to Orlando, and then somehow they beat the 9-10 winner, and then they play the Pistons, and that's the same result. So yes, I would much rather have the dart throw on the lottery pick than losing in the first round.
Yeah, I'm not mad at you for that, man. Now, how about the Pistons and the Celtics? They enter the playoffs as the top 2 seeds in the East. My question for you, John, is do you view the Pistons as the team to come out of the East, even though the Celtics are favored to be the East representative for the finals?
These are my 2 teams that I think are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I know that we spent a lot of time talking about the Knicks this season and the Cavaliers, and if you look at the bookies odds, the Cavaliers and the Knicks have better odds than the Pistons, and I've spent all season going, when are people going to give the Detroit Pistons respect? I think the Celtics are rightly favored, and I do think that they'll come out of the Eastern Conference and represent the conference in the finals, but I think it's going to be a really good series that the Pistons could give them, right? I'm not writing off the Pistons at all, and I think that they have the easier path than the Celtics, because in the first round, they're going to get whoever comes out as the 8th seed, and then they're looking at the winner of that Cavs series. So I like the Pistons. They've been atop the Eastern Conference all season long. They have the 9th best offense in the NBA, and they're killers at the defensive end. And what happened when Cade Cunningham went down, right? Everybody went, and I thought so too, that, this is going to be a little tricky for them. They've got a whole bunch of guys who just play really hard, play excellent defense. They know who they are. They get all their points in the paint. And they all know their roles, right? JB Bickerstaff has done an excellent job doing more with less. You get Jalen Duren taking a step up, Asar Thompson being, just a huge problem at the defensive end. Duncan Robinson being like basically their lone shooter. That's an issue, but put that aside for a second. Guys like Isaiah Stewart and Danish Jenkins and just like their role players just really stepping up. So I'm not writing off the Pistons at all. I think these have been the two best teams in the Eastern Conference all season long, and I think they're going to meet in the conference finals.
Yeah, hopefully we get a riveting 7-game series between those two. John Gonzalez, always appreciate the time, man. Take care. All right, so here are the odds to win the Eastern Conference. And as we mentioned, the Celtics are the favorite at plus 155. Then it's not the Pistons, it's the Cavaliers at plus 340, followed by the Pistons and the Knicks. Coming up at Augusta, Rory McIlroy